Шановні колеги,
Dear colleagues, we continue our working day, and now the floor is given to Minister of Defense spokesman on ATO-related issues, Colonel Oleksandr Motuzyanyk. Good afternoon, everyone. Now the information about the events that happened yesterday in the ATO area. Yesterday in Lugansk area, the enemy opened fire in traditional flash sports of the last days. The highest activity of the enemy was in Popasnyansky region. There, military actions were during the first part of the day. Enemy forces used predominantly small arms and launched 4 mortar mines at our positions. In Troitsk, ceasefire was violated by the militants in the evening. There, the enemy carried out armed provocation with the use of grenade launchers, and twice the militants opened fire in Stanitsa Luganska. That happened in the evening. During the last 24 hours in the Lugansk area, there were 7 enemy shelling recorded. The Donetsk area, the situation remains the same. The tension is in Svetlodarsk, Balch, perimeter of Gorlovka, Avdiivka, and the region of the Donetsk airport. In all these areas, the enemy used heavy weapons, 82 and 120 millimeter mortars, and during 24 hours, the enemy launched more than 120 mines. And the most tense situation was in Avdiivka production area. There, the militants was active during the day, and for 6 hours they shelled our positions till 8 in the evening. On the whole, during the last 24 hours in the Donetsk area, there were 12 enemy shelling. Yesterday in the Mariupol area, the number of enemy shelling increased to 1.5 times and reached the average of last weeks. So these are 30 incidents of ceasefire violations, and the main areas are Mariinsky region and east approach to Mariupol. The enemy used small arms, including sniper rifles, grenade launchers, rarely mortars, and the enemy launched no more than 2 mines each time. So the enemy used, there were 5 incidents of the use of mortars by the enemy. And at 7:20, the subversive group of the enemy tried to attack our forces near Taramchuk. Due to well-coordinated actions of our forces, the enemy was repelled in several minutes. Yesterday, servicemen of National Guard of Ukraine detained a checkpoint in Mariupol, a militant proxy. It was established that he is the resident of Donetsk, he is a doctor, and he is active collaborator of the militants. The detained was handed into law enforcers. During the last 24 hours, in the result of the military actions, 1 Ukrainian serviceman was killed, 3 were wounded. Our hearts go out to the relatives of servicemen who died for Ukraine. Military intelligence informs that now, in detachments of so-called 11th Regiment of Russian occupation forces, the Commission continued its work that was sent by Russian commanders. The check revealed 20 episodes of hidden death and injuries of the occupants. According to the information provided by Chief Intelligence Department of MOD, in so-called 7th Brigade, 10 militants from detachment of anti-aircraft forces left their positions without permission, and in artillery brigade, 5 militants were wounded when they load the ammunition. About training. These days, the servicemen of National Guard of Ukraine that are in Lviv Oblast, they had some firing training, and they had a training in conditions that are close to the real battle conditions, and these exercises provide the effective use of weapons and to improve psychological readiness of troops. And one more resident of Donetchina used SBU program that is called They Wait for You Back Home, and he returned to peaceful life. He said that in 2014 he joined the militants because he was in bad financial position. He served at checkpoints. He verified the documents of citizens. Then he got tired of this life and he decided to leave the ranks of the militants. He was afraid of criminal responsibility and he was hiding for a long time in occupied territories, and then he got information from his acquaintance about SBU programs and decided to benefit from this program. So this is all for now. Do you have questions? Please introduce yourself first. Elena Shupkina, Ukraine Crisis Media Center. Oleksandr. German journalists addressed us and they asked us what are non-battle losses. I explain what it is. So these losses can be divided into battle and non-battle losses. Battle losses are subdivided into sanitary and irreversible losses. So these are servicemen who died. Sanitary are those who were wounded. Battle losses, these are losses sustained by ATO forces during military actions. So these are shellings delivered by the militants, battle clashes, and also when they tip a wire trap, for example. And sometimes there are non-battle, non-military losses that are sustained by Ukrainian forces. It can happen in different cases. For example, they can be injured or killed because they mishandled some weapon, or because some rules of safety were violated using military equipment, or the servicemen die of some illnesses. So these are losses sustained by armed forces, not in the course of military actions. Thank you, Colonel. One more question. Crimean News, Bogdanovich. Do you have information about 3 servicemen who went missing several days ago? And one of the volunteers published information that in Svetlodarsk Balch our forces brought on the territory. They freed another part of the territory. Can you confirm this officially? Volunteer Yuri Misyagin provided this information on his Facebook page. Thank you. As it was informed these days, 3 servicemen who carried out military tasks in the region of confrontation in Mariupol area, they didn't return to their place of deployment. Now there is a search operation and detachments of law enforcement and servicemen of technical unit of Mariupol are involved, but there is no official information on this. And when we have this information, we will inform you about it. About deployment of our detachments in Svetlodarsk Balch. As you may know, the situation these months is really tense. There were military actions, and as the result, the detachments of the armed forces of Ukraine, they held some important positions, new positions, but in the limits of a line of confrontation. So the Minsk agreements are not violated. And military units that are defending our positions, they got hold of some positions, but in the framework of our territory. Do you have other questions? If there are no, thank you. This is end of press briefing. Thank you. Dear colleagues, the next event is at 1 p.m.